In this video, I'm going to share with you 7 strategies in order to generate more revenues and more growth in your coaching business. I've worked with hundreds of clients over the past years to help them grow and scale their speaking, coaching, and mentoring businesses. And I've observed along the way these 7 things that are always game changers for my clients. So I'm going to walk you through these 7 different strategic business model strategies in order to grow and make your business more profitable, stable, sustainable, and scalable. So before I get into number 1, I want to share with you a story. When I was in the beginning of my business, I was in the 3rd or 4th year, and I was hustling. I had a coaching business and I was struggling. I was struggling because I was constantly trying to land the next client. I was doing events, I was doing trainings, workshops, speaking engagements, basically trying every which way that I could to make money. This is because back in the day, this was around 2010, 2011, we were still in the throes of the recession. People weren't spending as much money, and I was doing my darndest to generate any kind of business I could. So part of what I was doing at this time was I was doing this large event called the Women's Success Summit. I think this particular time that I'm thinking of was my 2nd or my 3rd Women's Success Summit. And I had an old friend from college, her name is Eugenia Kim, and she had a really successful multi-million-dollar hat making business. Now, here's the thing you have to know about Eugenia. Back when we were in college together and we were best friends, I was the star student. I was the one that she used to copy her notes from. I was the one that used to help her get the A's in our psych classes. That's not to say that I was any smarter than Eugenia. In fact, I truly believe Eugenia is one of the few geniuses that I've ever known, like Einstein level. But when it came to mundane things like classes and tests in school, I had it on lock. So when Eugenia and I parted ways after college and she went off and created our hat making business and I went off, started doing my career, I was shocked when 10 years later we came back together at one of our college reunions and Eugenia had totally made this incredible business and here I was struggling. So I invited her to come to my Women's Success Summit and let me interview her on stage. It's so that I could discover and help the people in my audience discover, how do you make a business doing what you love? Something as fun as designing hats. So we're on stage together. And I said, Eugenia, what do you do in a typical day? And I was expecting her to tell me that she went to the office and that she, reviewed paperwork and she made sales and she talked to clients and, all this stuff that, I assumed that someone leading her business would do. But instead, Eugenia looked, she looked around, she looked up, she thought about it. She's like, well, actually, I don't really go to the office. I don't really do that, the traditional thing. In fact, I have other people that handle that for me. And I pretty much spend my whole day exploring the city. She lived in Manhattan. I go to museums, I look at fabric shops, and I basically spend my time getting ideas for the next set of hats that I'm going to design. And I remember in that moment feeling the feeling of envy course through my veins, where I was like, she's so lucky. She gets to do exactly what she loves to do, and she doesn't have to do anything that she doesn't like to do. And immediately I felt that feeling of like, I want that too. Because what I realized in the moment was that Eugenia had built an entire business around doing what she loved to do the most. And she didn't have to deal with any of the business that she didn't love to do. And that's when I started to understand the importance of personal alignment with business growth. And so that's why this is number 1. So this star represents personal alignment. And there are these 6 areas. The first area is alignment with your identity, alignment with who you really are. At the very core, at the very center, is your business growth and scaling strategy aligned with who you really are, what you love to do, and what you're best at? In other words, your magic. The other area for alignment is alignment with purpose. And that's why it's at the top of the star, because it's alignment with something greater than us. Maybe even with something divine, like a divine destiny that you might have. Is what you're doing why you're on this planet? Another area of alignment, I'm going to go down here, is with your core values. Is what you're doing aligned with what you believe? With what you believe in? Or are you compromising your values in order to build and grow your business? Here's an example. If you have a high value for family, but your business is keeping you on the road all the time, such that you're missing out on your kids' lives, then your business is not in alignment with your values. Now, the reason I put the values on this lower point of the star is because it's one of those things that ground us into life. It grounds us into humanity. Alignment with our values is a grounding force in business. And then on the flip side of this is your business aligned with your self-care? So this self-care piece is another way that your business can help you ground into life and feel grounded, present, and healthy so that you can then expand and grow. So then over here, we start to look at this one, which faces forward into the future, which is, does your business align with your vision, with what you want to create in the world and in your own life? And then backwards, does it align with your beliefs? Because if you have, for example, a belief that, let's say, that you're unworthy of making money or that you are not good enough, then it'll be very difficult for you to align a business with all these other things. So these things work in concert, and these 6 elements are what help your business become in alignment so that you can build energy. Imagine a star, right? Builds energy internally and combusts, sending light out into the world. That's much like you building that internal energy allows you to expand and deliver light, aka knowledge, expertise, contribution to the world. Now we'll move into the second thing. The second thing for expanding and growing and scaling your coaching business is diversification of revenue stream. Now this is a concept that I learned from a woman who's one of my mentors named Jane Atkinson in the book that she wrote called The Wealthy Speaker 2.0. And what she talks about is having a theme or having something that you focus on and then having multiple revenue streams flowing off of that theme. So for example, you might have speaking, you might have coaching, you might have consulting, training, online programs, etc. So the idea is that all of these different revenue streams are flowing off of this one theme. And to move right into number 3, there's a difference between having silos, 3 different and distinct offerings, from having an ascension. So number 3 is ascension, of having A, then B, then C, such that one program goes into the next one, into the next one. So the beauty of this model, of getting out of this siloed model where you have A or B or C, is the idea that you focus all of your energy on selling into, on offering, on enrolling into A, knowing that when people enroll into A and get good results, then the natural order of things is that they'll come into B and come into C. This is how my business is structured. A here is always the business breakthrough retreat that we do. And from the business breakthrough retreat, we invite people to enroll into the influencer circle. And from the influencer circle, a certain percentage of people stay for 2 years. This is a 1-year program, into our 2-year program, which is the leadership cabinet. So to come back to this diversification of revenue streams, what we want to see is how do each of these things flow into each other. For example, in my business, speaking leads into coaching, speaking leads into consulting, and speaking leads into training and into online. So I know that when I focus on speaking as A, speaking drives the rest of the business. So really looking at your business right now and seeing, do the offerings flow into each other? And is there a specific offering that flows into everything else, that drives the engine of the business? Number 4 is my favorite framework for structuring business. And it's kind of related to number 3. Basically, it's based on this idea of a front end, a breakthrough, and a big back end. Okay, so the front end is your marketing. It's what puts you out in front of the world. In my business, the front end is speaking, because it's what drives everything else. My breakthrough is my retreat. Every single person that sees me speak and that is a right fit, if they're a right fit and if we have a conversation, they get enrolled into the breakthrough retreat, which is the business breakthrough retreat. Then the big back end is where you have monthly recurring revenues. Monthly recurring revenues they're the holy grail of business. This is what makes a business the most stable and sustainable. Why? Because you have predictable income. Because you don't have the roller coaster up and down of revenues, and instead you have stability And from that stability, you can become more creative. The fifth thing to look at in scaling and growing a business is, are you using a mass model or a boutique model? So my example for this is a price value matrix. So this is value on the y-axis, and this is price. Don't worry, I'm not going to go deep into mathematics here. So the value on this y-axis, this is high value, this is low value, this is low price, and this is high price. So think about it. Let's pretend we're talking about cars or shoes, right? Let's say in the world of cars, you might have a high value car at a low price point. An example of a high value car at a low price point is a Hyundai or a Kia. They get the job done, they have a really great warranty, they go 100,000 miles with powertrain coverage, and they don't cost a whole lot of money in the world of cars. When you have a high price, high value car, you see that that's a luxury experience, that people are paying for more than just the nuts and bolts of the vehicle. Yeah, of course the nuts and bolts are beautiful, they may have a leather interior, but I'll tell you that my Hyundai can go against a BMW in terms of its rideability, and I have leather interior, I have all these special features, but it's no BMW. And so from that perspective, high value, high price, this is where you make the most profit. This is where you have to sell the most volume. So you can either be here in the profitable part of the matrix, high price, high value, or you can be here in the volume part of the matrix. Now I point this out to you because so often as people try to scale, they immediately look at mass market models. They want to drop price points and deliver massive value. And I would encourage you to consider really exploiting this fully first before you go here. Think about it. For example, it's hard to go from here to here, and it's very easy to go from here to here. For example, when Honda wanted to create a premium product, they didn't create a premium Honda, they created an Acura. They had to create a whole new model. But now think about it. If Maserati were to create a lower price point Maserati, people would go crazy and they'd snap them up like hotcakes, most likely. So highly encourage you here as you're looking to scale, where on this matrix do you want to be? And by the way, while we're at it, let's talk about the two places on this matrix that you never want to be. You never want to be low value, low price, because that's just forgettable. It's not a place in the market that's easy to play. It's highly competitive, and it's probably going to be exhausting. And you absolutely never, ever, 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 ever want to be the high price, low value offering, because that's where you get sued and where you get in trouble. The sixth thing to look at when you're scaling your business is leverage. I drew this picture of a seesaw because you can think about this fulcrum here. If you've ever studied physics, you know that by using a seesaw, you can lift something much heavier than you with less force than it would take to lift it directly. That's what leverage is in business. Smaller inputs, bigger outputs. Here's an example. You can leverage technology in business. So for example, instead of delivering consulting or coaching services one-on-one, you can deliver them in a group using a Zoom platform. Zoom provides leverage. The group provides leverage. Now recording that program and then disseminating it out through YouTube and Vimeo, that's another way to provide leverage. So look at ways that you can leverage your time and your effort into broader audiences using technology and using team, using other people and delegating on your team. Now, before I get to the seventh and final item, I want to invite you to like my channel and subscribe so that you get notifications every time I drop a new video. And then finally, this stands for big vision. What that means is that when you're thinking about growing and scaling your business, I invite you to consider 10xing that vision. What is it that you want to create in the world? Okay, now what would that look like times 10? And what would that look like times 100? And what would that look like times 1,000? Can you even think that big? So really giving yourself the opportunity to even imagine the possibility of going huge and getting ideas from that thought exercise and then bringing it back into the present so that you can capitalize on those ideas right here, right now. I hope this video was helpful for you in imagining ways that you can diversify your revenues, grow your value proposition, and make more money as you scale your business. If this is something you want to go deeper into and you believe that I might be the person to help you, let's connect. Go to superstaractivator.com/go. And by doing that, you can sign up to do a discovery call with me, actually a business breakthrough call with me. And there's no pressure to buy anything. This is me just adding value and serving you and then seeing if and how we might continue to work together in the future. I hope to see you soon.